All right, so last time we went deep into the world of JavaScript prototypes,
Mm-hmm.
inheritance.
Yeah,
Definitely a workout for the old brain cells.
for sure.
But today, we're switching gears. We're diving into something that's crucial for, I'd say, building any modern, snappy website or web application.
Absolutely.
We're talking asynchronous programming in JavaScript.
Oh, woo, yeah, exciting stuff.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty, I guess just for anyone listening who might be new to this, why don't we quickly touch on what asynchronous programming is and why it even matters?
Sure.
I mean, we experience it all the time when we browse the web,
You do.
but we don't really see what's going on under the hood.
Behind the scenes, there's a lot happening.
So,
Uh,
I guess I'll start by saying, think about all the things that happen on a web page, right? You have, images loading. You might have data being fetched from a server somewhere.
Animations, user interactions, all that.
Yeah, exactly. You have animations running smoothly. You can click buttons and things respond instantly. And all of this needs to happen without the page freezing or lagging.
Exactly.
And this is where asynchronous programming comes in. And I think it's maybe helpful to understand why it's even necessary in the first place.
Yeah.
So at its core, JavaScript is single-threaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can really only do one thing at a time. It's kind of like imagine a chef
Yeah,
in a busy kitchen.
I like that analogy. Yeah.
They're trying to juggle multiple dishes at once.
A one-man show, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh?
And without some sort of system for managing all these tasks concurrently, things would get pretty chaotic, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if that chef gets bogged down with one complex dish,
Yeah.
everything else grinds to a halt. The appetizers get cold, the main course is delayed, nobody's happy. And in the world of web development, that translates to a slow, unresponsive website. The dreaded spinning wheel of doom. Nobody wants that.
Right, exactly. And this is what asynchronous programming helps us solve. So over the years, JavaScript has developed several ways to deal with this. I think the first one that everyone learns about when they first start getting into asynchronous programming is callbacks.
Callbacks, the trusty workhorse of early JavaScript.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess maybe we can start there.
Sure.
How would you, if you were talking to someone who's just starting out, how would you explain what a callback is?
Well, going back to our chef analogy, imagine you've got a timer set for that complex dish, right?
Yeah.
But while that's cooking, you don't just stand around twiddling your thumbs.
Right.
You can prep other ingredients, maybe start on a salad, chop some veggies, use that waiting time effectively. That timer going off is like the callback. It's a signal saying, hey, time to check on that dish now.
I see. Okay.
So in code, a callback is essentially a function that you pass to another function, and you're saying, hey, when you're done with that task, call this function next.
Got it. I mean, it sounds simple enough. Can you give us a simple code example maybe?
Sure, let's say we want to display a message after a delay of 2 seconds. We could do something like this. Set timeout function.
Okay.
Hansel.log, 2 seconds have passed. 2000.
Okay, and so in this case, that console.log
Yeah.
would be the callback.
Exactly. The console.log is the function that gets called back after that 2-second delay.
Okay, that makes sense. But then, yeah, we talk about callback hell, and that sounds pretty scary.
It can be, yeah.
So, when do callbacks start to become a problem? Why is callback hell even a thing?
Well, as your application grows and you have more and more asynchronous operations happening, you might end up with callbacks nested inside other callbacks. And this can get really hard to read and maintain. It becomes a tangled mess of code.
Like trying to follow a recipe where each step requires waiting for the previous one to finish before you can even start.
Exactly. Chaos in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. So, I know that, JavaScript thankfully didn't stop there. Developers realized there had to be a better way. And that's where promises come in.
Promise is a much more elegant solution.
So, I know promises are a big deal in JavaScript these days. Can you try to break it down, maybe using another one of your, awesome analogies?
Sure, let's think about online shopping. You place an order, you get an order confirmation, that's your promise.
Oh,
You don't know exactly when the package will arrive, but you know you'll either get your package, the promise is resolved, or you'll get a notification saying it's been canceled. The promise is rejected.
okay. So it's like a guarantee of some kind of eventual outcome.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of promises. You can write code that anticipates those outcomes and handles them gracefully.
So I guess instead of this messy nesting of callbacks, we have this clear flow with promises. Make a request, get a promise, and then handle the resolved or rejected states.
Spot on. And the syntax for that is super clean. You use .then to handle the resolved state and .catch to handle any errors or rejections.
Okay, so it's much more organized than callbacks. It's like, I guess going back to the chef analogy, it's like a well-run kitchen where everyone knows their role and what to do when. But I've heard about something even more powerful than promises, something called async and await.
Ah, you're venturing into the realm of true async mastery.
So how do async and await build on promises?
Yeah.
And is it really as awesome as everyone says it is?
Well, async await makes working with promises even easier. It allows you to write asynchronous code that looks and feels synchronous, which is a huge win for readability.
Okay, so how does it work? Like, what does await actually do?
Imagine our chef again. They put something in the oven, and it needs to bake for, say, 30 minutes. Now, with promises, you could set up a callback to handle what happens after those 30 minutes. But with await, you essentially say, okay, pause here until this dish is done baking, then move on to the next step.
I see. So it's like a more intuitive way to pause execution.
Exactly. It's like the chef can check on other things while that's baking. They're not just standing there staring at the oven. They're using that time productively.
I see. Okay. And so that makes the code much cleaner and easier to follow because it reads almost like a normal synchronous flow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No more messy nesting or jumping around.
So it sounds like async and await really did simplify things.
Yeah.
But even the best chefs make mistakes, right? Like things don't always go according to plan in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
So how do we handle errors in asynchronous code? Like what if the network drops or an API request fails?
That's where good error handling comes in.
Okay.
It's mission critical in asynchronous code. You need a safety net because you're dealing with a lot of unknowns. Imagine you're cracking an egg for an omelet and you drop it.
Happens to the best of us.
It happens, but you don't throw out the whole omelet, right? You grab another egg, clean up the mess, and adapt. And that's what we need to do in our code, anticipate potential problems and handle them gracefully.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? Like, how do we build those safety nets into our asynchronous code?
That's where .catch with promises and try.catch blocks with async await come in. They let you write code that says, if something goes wrong here, do this instead.
Got it. So it's like having a backup plan, so your entire application doesn't crash if one thing goes wrong. Okay, so we've talked about callbacks, promises, and async await. That's like the trifecta of asynchronous tools in JavaScript. But how does all of this come together in the real world? Like, can you give us a concrete example of where we might use these techniques in a website or a web app?
Of course. One of the most common scenarios is fetching data from an API. It's how we build dynamic websites that pull in fresh content and update in real time.
Okay, and so this is happening all the time, right? Like whenever we see, I don't know, personalized recommendations on a website or like a news feed that updates constantly, this is probably asynchronous programming in action, right?
Exactly. It's like your web browser is the chef, placing an order for ingredients data, in this case, from an online store, the API, and then using those ingredients to prepare the web page you see.
Ah, I see. And so this is where fetch, async, and await all come together.
Precisely. We use fetch to make the request to the API, async await to handle the response without blocking the rest of the page, and then we use the retrieved data to dynamically update the page content.
Got it. And all this happens behind the scenes so the user just sees a smooth, responsive experience.
That's the goal.
And I know we've talked a lot about how asynchronous programming helps us make things faster and more efficient, but when we're writing asynchronous code, are there any, I guess, best practices or things to keep in mind? Like, how do we make sure our asynchronous code doesn't turn into, a messy kitchen nightmare?
Well, just like a well-organized kitchen is essential for a chef, well-organized code is crucial for managing asynchronous operations effectively. A few key things to remember. First, keep your code clean and readable. Avoid excessive nesting. Try to break down complex tasks into smaller, more manageable functions.
Makes sense.
And second, don't be afraid to leverage helper libraries. Libraries like Axios, for example, can streamline common async tasks and make your life much easier. It's like having specialized kitchen equipment that simplifies specific jobs.
So there you have it. From the humble callbacks to the elegant promises and the super-powered async await, we've journeyed through the exciting world of asynchronous programming in JavaScript.
It's been a delicious ride.
It really has. And I think the key takeaway is that understanding these concepts is essential for building modern, responsive web applications. It's how we create experiences that are smooth, efficient, and delightful for our users.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So until next time, happy coding.
Happy coding.
Oh, and before we go, I just wanted to mention that next time, we'll be diving into the world of modules in JavaScript.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
It's like, how do we organize all these different ingredients, our code, in a way that makes sense and keeps our projects manageable?
Looking forward to it.
All right, see you then.
See ya.